everyone. Thanks for listening to the Drinks.com podcast, the business of online alcohol. I'm your host, Brandon Amoroso, and today I'm talking with Pat Roney, who's the former founder and CEO of Vintage Wine Estates. Thanks for coming on the show.
Happy to do so, Brandon. Looking forward to visiting with you today on the wine business in general. And it's an industry that, I know fairly well, having spent almost 40 years in it, working on different kinds of projects and doing different acquisitions. So it's something that is fun. It's certainly a challenging market, but it's one that's been there for a long time, over 8,000 years. And I expect it's going to be around another 8,000 years.
Yeah. How did you get your start in the business to begin with?
So I started in the business in Chicago, working as a sommelier at a restaurant called the Pump Room. It was a very famous restaurant back in the mid-'70s, and I went right from there into working for Seagram's in their wine business right out of college, and I worked with Seagram's for 10 years in various sales and marketing capacities. The last project I worked on with them was developing the Seagram Wine Coolers. We had Bruce Willis doing our television commercials. We took that from 0 to 20 million cases, and then I went back to California and started working with the Christian Brothers in their wine business, and Chateau St. Jean and Cundee, and spent a lot of time in the industry.
What do you think, are some of the unique challenges that face the alcohol industry that you alluded to a little bit earlier, that, other industries aren't necessarily, purview to? And I always think of it as like, I could spin up a website and I could start selling shoes online or whatever in like, a couple hours, but that's not the case with alcohol in any way whatsoever.
No, it's not the case. It's a highly regulated industry, and all goes back to laws that were enacted after the repeal of prohibition back in the 20s. And there's a system of distributors and requirements for licenses, and you see a lot of things today that you see a lot of this is in order to protect the children from getting access to alcohol. Well, it's really about the government getting their excise tax and all the money that they make off of wine and distilled spirits and beer, and then the states getting their money and all that. And so it's highly regulated. And you have a whole middle tier in the industry, the distributors that want to protect their business and protect their markets. And so there's a lot of people championing the laws and wanting to protect that three-tier system. So while you can get into the wine business or get into the beer business or spirits business easily enough with the right amount of capital, it takes time. It takes time, the laws. And I've seen consolidation in the market over the last 20 years too at the distributor level, which makes it very, very hard for a lot of wineries to get access to customers through what was the traditional channels. I mean, went back in the mid-'70s in the Chicago market, there were 24 distributors. Today there are 2. And so, they just have all this consolidation of business. And so as we have evolved in the industry, and I'll go back, I also spent time as the chief executive officer of Dean & DeLuca, a high-end grocery outlet that was based in New York, and we actually expanded it out to several other countries. But it was pre-Amazon days, and we were in the food business, and we set up our first website, and our first website, you couldn't even contact us, you couldn't email us, you couldn't do anything. We just put the products up, you wanted to buy them. And we ultimately put a distribution center in Wichita, Kansas, and we were so worried that people would think that we'd lost our New York identity. We still have things on our website about how the subways were running and what the weather was like in New York. And we ended up as PC Magazine's in their top 100 list of websites. We were like number 5, but that was way back when. And so, then my point that I'm trying to get to is I've seen the evolution, since the mid-'90s in the direct-to-consumer business, particularly in the wine segment. And, I've seen it. At one point we had brands, we were doing a licensing agreement with HBO, and we had Game of Thrones wines, which we was the number one selling wines on Amazon. That was before they bought Whole Foods, which required them because of the three-tier system to stop selling wine on Amazon. And as the distributors continue to consolidate, it's going to be more and more important for small to medium-sized wineries to build their business around reaching their consumers directly. Whether it's through the tasting rooms or whether it's doing satellite wine tastings in different cities, or obviously having a wine club and having a very, very strong and robust e-commerce platform, and one too that actually can integrate with literally there are 48 out of the 50 states have certain requirements that you have to do in order to sell wine online, and it actually goes down in some cases. Certain states require proof of age, that people are really 21. You have to have your website set up for that, and the websites, because of the compliance requirements, you have a lot of requirements in terms of how many cases or bottles you can ship and who you can ship them to per state. And so it's important to have your compliance, your back engine working very, very well in order to do that. And I continue to believe that long term, as the laws change and as things evolve, even as it evolves slowly, that the wine business will be a strong market, and that direct consumer will be a significant part of it for all but the major wine companies.
Yeah, the whole protect the children thing to me is it's always been very difficult to wrap my head around because,
Right.
if I know, back in high school or whatever, you're not going online and,
No,
ordering alcohol. You're walking
no,
over to the
you need
market
it
and you're
that minute.
just,
You want it
yeah,
that minute. You're going to go up to the store to ask somebody to buy it for you. You're going to. And
exactly.
generally, it's not a bottle of Chateau Lafite Rothschild that you're looking for.
Not quite, not quite.
Yeah.
I wish that would have been a
Mhm.
great high school bottle.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, do you think that the three-tier system and all of the sort of hurdles and runarounds that currently exist in the market today, is this just sort of the way that it is, or do you think that over time, the barriers to entry will get reduced, sort of little by little?
Well, it's a good question, Brandon, and it's got a complex answer to it, and for a few reasons. One, I think that over time, barriers will continue to come down, making it easier to have for the consumer to have more opportunities to buy at different points. Um, and there's things like Costco and other major companies, Total Wine and more, that are challenging the regulations in certain states because Costco wants to be able to buy direct because they have the purchasing power and they have their own warehouse system. And so a lot of major retailers will do that. And we've seen over the last 20 years, probably 15, 16, 17 states that went from either small stores controlled by the government in their market to open grocery store distribution. And that model is now being challenged, I think, in Colorado. That's changing. And it's up in New York where it's still just independent stores. And they're trying to change that too. So that part of it, I say, for the consumer will continue to make it easier. I the but what is more challenging will be with the distributors, in the sense that the distributors they're only going to want to carry so much inventory. They can only really manage so many brands, and you end up with the trend is probably two or three major distributors across the country. Southern Glazer, Republic, and it looks like in Breakthrough being the third group, it's going to be hard for there's in California alone, there's over 5,000 wineries, and they're not going to carry 5,000 different wine brands. They're not going to. So a lot of wineries have to deal with making sure that they can run their business profitably off of the direct to consumer channels.
Yeah, and I think wineries have a unique leg up in that perspective of being able to connect with the consumer directly, in the sense that they also have usually like a tasting room that they can take
Hmm.
advantage of. And, that's not something that really any other type of business who sells online has, unless they have like a retail footprint. But I mean,
Yeah.
that tasting room, the tourism experience, the sort of free marketing that you get as a byproduct of that is really valuable. I think there's still some room to go for wineries to actually take advantage of that. I mean, I can't tell you how many wineries I visited, went to the tasting room, had a great experience, and then I never heard from them ever again. But
Yeah, shame on them. Right.
they,
They need to establish that relationship with you. That's important.
but I feel like the technology is starting to catch up and actually enable these merchants versus hindering them. Because it feels like for the last 20 years, most of the industry has, and rightfully so, has been led to believe that the solutions that they can use for commerce or really for anything have to be just built only for alcohol. But it feels like there's a movement towards, whether it's Shopify or other things like that, you know, adding in the components that make it possible for you to use the same thing that, an
Yeah.
Allbirds would use or a Fashion Nova or these giant companies versus having to use these point specific solutions.
Yeah, we actually I just recently purchased a piece of business back, Windsor Vineyards from Vintage Wine Estates, and its model is going to go on Shopify, and for that very reason, because of all the people that are on it and all the developers and the apps, and as long as you have your compliance engine, which is really just another API, to take care of the legal and regulatory issues, everything else, should be the same, and you should be able to take advantage of it. And I, spent some time. The interesting thing, the challenge, not, and this challenge is not unique just to the wine industry, but the challenge is maintaining a common database. And a lot of times databases have been in the direct to consumer business have been driven off of email addresses. Well, how many different email addresses do you have? And what about, and family? And that changes a lot. I've been a big proponent, and I actually think Shopify has finally gone this way now, or is going that way, is that your cell phone should be the database, the single point of reference. Because people just don't change their cell phone numbers anymore, or very rarely, as opposed to how many times they change their, they and it's quite common to have one person have 3 or 4 different records within a particular winery or a particular business, and you don't get the full story of that consumer. I mean, they're buying online, they're going into your tasting room, they're a wine club member. You need to have that common database, and that's an important thing if you want to really be successful in the wine business.
Yeah, using the phone number as that unique identifier is far more effective than an email address, especially considering the fact that I don't think I've ever had a different phone number, but I think I have like 45 different emails. Uh,
Exactly, and it's a major problem in databases. Most of them were not. Of course, a lot of databases were designed when there was no such thing as cell phones. But
so you mentioned that you just recently made an acquisition of a vineyard. Um, what are, you know, three of the things that you're most excited about as it relates to, that acquisition and just like the industry at large going into 2025 and beyond that you see as an opportunity, not only for the purchase you just made, but just in general?
well, Windsor Vineyards is 100% direct to consumer. We don't have anything but direct business, and it just offers it's personalized wine labels for small businesses and large businesses as well as consumers. And so it's a slightly unique take in the business. It's been around for 50 years, but it was started through telemarketing. But now we've been successful in transitioning most of it onto the web business, and ultimately we'll add a tasting room component to it as well. And then we'll make another couple of acquisitions, but we'll stay focused exclusively in the direct to consumer channel because I think that's the way that's the way that the industry is trending and should trend.
With the consolidation of distributors, you know, how does one get past that hurdle? Because if I'm a small business owner and I'm just starting an alcohol company, I hear that there's only two distributors that I can possibly sell through to get into a particular market. That does not seem like great odds for me versus when it used to be
No,
24.
it doesn't, and the distributors today, because they have that kind of control, are demanding, if you want to go work with them, you're going to have to provide incremental funding. Maybe you're going to have to pay for some of their salespeople. Maybe you're going to have to have your own sales team on that does their job for them. And I mean, I think ultimately, in every other industry, distributors they just deliver products. They deliver the products. They don't do the order taking. But our industry is different. And and so for that matter, that may change over time, but I don't know. I don't see it right away. It's very, unless you're going to acquire a winery that already has distributions already in 3 tier, it would be very, as a startup, it'd be pretty darn tough to get it. Now, if you're selling, if you get some cachet with your brand and you get some high scores and there's a big demand for it, maybe they'll take it, but otherwise, no. And I get it. They've got too many wineries that they're trying to serve today, and they're it's a lot of dollars to tie up in inventory, and a lot of I mean, a distributor can have 700 different wineries it represents, 1,000 different wineries. It's where do you sit in? How do you stand out?
So what keeps you coming back for more within the wine industry? It's not the easiest industry, but
No, it's not, but it's fun. I mean, it's a business. It's a business I know, and in this case, it's a business that's transitioning to my son, and so that's how I'm going to come into it. Is still say somewhat retired, but mentor. Um, and we didn't. I mean, there are other challenges in the wine industry. There's a neo-prohibitionist movement. There's people that, a lot of people say the younger generation is not drinking wine as much as what the baby boomers were, but it's really it's a kind of a misstatement because the baby boomers never really adopted wine in any sort of larger way until they were 38 years old. That's the average age. And you've got a lot of the younger generations that is still not even 50% of the Gen Zs are over 30, 38. So so we'll see some of that. I see those trends, and obviously you're going to see more flavored wines. That's kind of a cycle that goes through. Seen those things cycle in and out.
are any of these alternative products, whether it's CBD, cannabis, is that a concern for the industry long term, especially in the lower tier price point range?
In the lower tier price point range, especially in the beer market, and then in the wine category and the spirits category, I mean, they're they're not taking away from the $15 plus retail category. Um, and if you're selling business online, you don't want to be selling $7, $8 bottles of wine. You can't make any money at it. The pick and pack cost and the shipping cost and all the other things.
Where do you think that, the opportunities lie ahead then for, the wine industry? You mentioned some of the challenges, but what are some of the opportunities that they can take advantage of going into next year?
Well, I think the opportunities are still there. It's getting more directly involved with your consumer base, your current customers, and extending beyond that, using AI to identify like-minded customers and things like that, and finding new ways to get out there and establish yourself. I think that as the baby boomers will continue to drink wine, and then they're living longer than previous generations did, and the younger consumers are going to adopt more wine. It may not be at the rate of the baby boomers, but they are going to adopt it more. And so I think that's it. And a lot of people think that people that buy wine are doing it. The primary thing is becoming members of wine clubs is because of the quality of that particular wine. Well, the quality has something to do with it, but privilege and access has something to do with it as well. Today's consumers want to be entertained. They want to have a nice time and they want to have a good experience. And you have to make sure that you're setting yourself up to be successful in providing those experiences, not just your tasting room experience. Here's your wine. Goodbye. Go home.
Yeah. And consumers are shopping from digitally native brands
They
90% of
are.
the time now, and they
Yeah.
expect that experience. And then, you still go to some websites, wineries in
Yeah.
particular, and it's like a mail order catalog. You're like,
Right.
this is not going to
Yeah.
be,
Not it. Yes. No.
yeah, the under 30 consumer is not, ordering from that website.
No, and yeah, and they're not ordering it from the big screen TV, big screen computer either. It's on their phone. I mean, so you better make sure you have that right.
I do find it fascinating how, Amazon is sort of the 800-pound gorilla in commerce, but because of the rules and regulations in the alcohol industry, they're boxed out. And
Right.
so, it does, in one sense, give, more opportunity to others to be able to sell into that market versus, if Amazon had its own, private label wine, they could probably take over, 90% of the lower tier price point in a couple weeks with how
Yeah.
they do their private label things.
Yeah. Well, they do have private labels in wine, and but they sell them just through the stores, or it's through the Whole Foods to the you have to go to the store, or the store has to deliver it. And and they had those like the small store concepts, which I think they've since folded Amazon Fresh,
Hmm.
where they were trying the same sort of thing.
Yeah, there's definitely a different type of, customer for that instant delivery versus those
Yep.
who are willing to, sign up for the club and be a part
Yeah.
of something like that.
Yeah. Something longer term.
Do you think that the continuity model within the, wine industry is one that is here to stay long term, or do you think consumers' preferences are shifting more towards that, one-time purchasing, need it, I'm going to buy it, but, not having that annual recurring subscription?
There's people still like the continuity programs, and I think what the shift is in had been, hey, I want to pick what goes into my continuity program. I don't want you just to send me what you want to send me. I want to pick out of the current offerings what I want to get. And if you do that, then you'll maintain that base. The average person is in the continuity programs in the wine industry for about 18 months, and and it's not to say it some various wineries before we had people in them that were in them for 10 years or 15 years. And the flip side means you had some that were out of it in 3 months or 6 months. And if they go out in 3 or 6 months, then you as a winery, you're not doing your job. You're not connecting with them.
15 years is as loyal of a customer as you can get.
Yeah, yeah. Especially in a market, in the wine industry, there can be at any given point in time on the shelves across America 300,000 different wine choices. Between the different vintages and the different wineries and the different grapes and all the other things. And we're in a worldwide market, and the United States is the largest market for of any particular country in the wine business. So if you're an Italian winery, you have to be in the United States to do well. There's just not enough people in Italy to consume the amount of wineries that are there.
Yeah,
Same with France and other countries.
that customer education is so important, and I think it's something that is done in a much more effective way online, where you can control the
Yep.
narrative, you can show off, all the history and sort of background of your winery versus in store, you know, maybe you're at the end cap, maybe you're not, maybe, where's your placement, who's the store associate there selling it or not selling it. It is much easier to be able to create that, direct connection online than it is through traditional channels.
They say on the shelf in the grocery store, if the shopper's walking by, if you get 7 seconds of attention, you're lucky. And so, it's just different. In most cases, they're either buying from a brand they know or the wine that they usually buy, or they're buying because they like the label. The label's pretty. That's what you have.
I
And
think there's going to be some exciting, I'd say, changes when it comes to label creation, especially with all the AI advancements that
I
have
think
been
so. I
made.
think so. Yeah.
Because the data around that is crazy in terms of how much of the purchasing decision is factored into, what the label is, especially at a
Yeah.
certain price point. I mean, it's more label than it is anything else.
No, no, that's correct. That's correct. And that's important, and that's something that the industry needs to focus on.
So enough with all the industry specific questions. I got two fun ones to wrap one up here.
Okay, great.
So first is, what's your favorite wine memory? Of all your time in the industry. What's one that sticks out to you the most?
Oh, I've got a few of them. Probably one that was kind of favorite was back when I was in college at Northwestern University, and I was the sommelier at the pump room, and I had this guy that was trying to impress his girlfriend, and not that it's ever happened before, and he was asking me about some wines on the list, and he said to me, reading the white wines, white Burgundy section, he says, "Why can't I find a Gevrey Chambertin, I think it was, or something, or a Puy Foussé." Well, and I grabbed the list out of his hand and I turned it over. He says, "Because they're on this side of the page. You didn't. So that was good. I don't know why that sticks out in my mind, but it does. And then just having some great experiences in some of the chateaus in France, and the wine always tastes better in the country when you're there. I mean, one great wines in Italy. That was another fun story. One of the wineries that we worked with, I stayed at their house in Tuscany, and it used to be the house of the Archbishop of Tuscany. And well, turns out they took me downstairs and they showed me this tunnel that went into the next county, so the Archbishop could go visit his girlfriend, and she wasn't in his county. So that was,
One of the cool things about wine is how experiential it is. So your comment about it always tastes better where it was grown,
Yeah.
it makes sense, because you could have two bottles the exact same, but you have one in a great location with great friends, and you
Yes.
could have the other, by yourself somewhere, and it's not the same.
Not the same. It's just not the same. It's the experience, and that's what you have to remember.
And I think that actually lends itself to younger consumers. I mean,
It does.
consumers under 30, they shop experiences more than they shop,
They totally do.
materials.
Totally do it. Yeah.
And that's something that wineries can provide that a
Yep.
lot of other industries cannot.
No, it's fun. It's fun. They want to do it, and they are going to buy wine when they do it, but they want the experience first, and they'll pay for it.
And then the last one, if you could share a bottle with anyone, who would it be, and what would you drink? Doesn't have to be wine either. If you,
Yeah, I got you. I guess. Well, it would be wine, but it'd have to be that. Um, I would want to do that with one of the great minds, and probably be somebody that's since passed away, but not Warren Buffett or Bill Gates, or somebody that find fascinating.
I think that would be quite the interesting
Yeah,
the interesting bottle of wine for sure. Well, I appreciate you coming on and sharing all of your insights with us. I really appreciate you taking the time.
great, Brandon. Thank you so much for your time. And
Before we hop, can you let people know where they could find the new winery that you mentioned online?
I didn't go online to windsorvineyards.com. We're going to launch our new website in the end of January. But short term, there's a placeholder up there.
Awesome.